They say when your family hits rock bottom, people show their true colors. Mine did. The bankruptcy notice came with a deafening silence. One day we were upper middle class in a suburb outside Los Angeles. The next, my parents owed $2.8 million in bad investments, and our home had a foreclosure sticker on the door. The cars were gone, and so were the so-called friends. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what came next, when my sister Daisy and I were offered up like bargaining chips to clear the debt. Warren Callahan, the wealthiest man in the city and CEO of Callahan Global, showed up in our shattered living room like some benevolent god. 60 years old, widowed 10 times over, and still on the hunt for his next acquisition or wife. "You have 2 beautiful daughters," he said, examining us like we were items on a menu. "One can marry me. The other can be raised to marry my son." His son, Logan Callahan, was 18. Cold-eyed, razor-sharp, and untouchable. He sat silently in the corner sipping tea like this was all some boring board meeting. My mother clasped her hands like she was watching angels descend. My father, sweaty-palmed, kept nodding. "We'll accept whatever arrangement Mr. Callahan prefers." Warren chuckled. "No need, I'll let the girls choose." That was the moment I truly knew I'd been born into the wrong family. Daisy stood up, brushing her hair back with practiced elegance. "Mr. Callahan," she said sweetly, "I'd be honored to be part of your son's future. Raising me as his bride is a beautiful idea. He's so promising." She batted her lashes toward Logan, who didn't even flinch. Then she smiled again, so confident, so fake, she didn't even look at me. And me, I kept quiet. Because I remembered. I remembered the previous life, the first time this happened. Daisy had chosen Logan then too, and I, pushed by my parents and their pleading eyes, had married Warren. I became his 10th wife, his trophy, his possession. I survived 3 years filled with fear, manipulation, and mental torment, until Daisy jumped off a hotel rooftop, dragging me with her. We both died that day, but only I remembered it. Now I was back, and I wasn't going to let the same game play out. So I stood up, smiled calmly, and said the words I knew would change everything. "Mr. Callahan, I would be honored to marry you." Daisy turned to me, stunned. "You're joking." I smiled softly. "You've always liked younger guys. I've always admired experience. Power built from scratch, vision, legacy. You've built something amazing, Mr. Callahan." His eyes gleamed with twisted delight. I could see right through him. He leaned forward, that smile creeping across his aged face. "You're Madelyn, right? I've heard you're quite the academic and a ballerina too. Performed in Paris once, didn't you?" I nodded. "Yes, sir." He wasn't choosing me because of love. He was choosing me because I was a challenge. Daisy's smile faltered. She reached out and clutched Warren's arm, voice sugary. "Mr. Callahan, I dance too. Better than her, actually." She shot me a venomous look. "Right, sis." I stared right into her eyes and said softly, "Of course, you do. You've always been the showstopper. I just focus more on school." That did it. Warren glanced between us like a man picking between a glass of wine and a shot of whiskey. Eventually, he turned to Daisy. "You'll make a fine daughter-in-law." Her eyes sparkled, and just like that, the paths split again. This time, she would become the adopted fiancé of a cold, emotionally damaged heir. And I would once again step into the lion's den, only this time I was ready. As Warren stood up to leave, he gave me a long, lecherous look, as if I were already his. "I'll make the arrangements." Daisy nearly skipped out the door with him, her heels clicking like victory bells. She didn't even glance back. I turned to Logan, who still sat like a statue. Then, for the first time, he spoke. "I don't care what my father arranged. Just stay out of my sight." I tilted my head, keeping my tone light. "But I just agreed to help you with school. You're starting at Stanford in the fall, right? Calculus, economics, they can be tough." I was valedictorian, full scholarship, even got into Yale for grad school. He looked at me with the barest trace of a smirk, mocking, cruel. "If you're so brilliant, why would you marry my father for money?" I shrugged, because my parents sold me, and I made sure I came out ahead. He didn't respond, but I saw it then, a flicker of something human in those eyes. And for the first time, I thought, maybe I'm not the only one trying to survive. Logan Callahan didn't speak to me for 3 days. Not one word. Not even a glance. He treated me like I didn't exist, which was fine by me. After all, I had no interest in playing house with a teenage heir who barely acknowledged his own emotions. I had bigger things to worry about, like where I'd sleep, what came next, and how to secure a future that didn't end with me locked in a golden cage. The Callahan estate in Bel Air was massive, columns, glass, and polished silence. Each room was dripping in wealth and dread, as if every inch whispered secrets. I chose the guest room closest to the garden. Not too big. Not too extravagant, but safe. Warren hadn't visited yet. Thank God. The moment the contract was signed, engagement papers, they called it, I was left in Logan's care, officially to help him with his studies. Unofficially. To make me disappear until Warren wanted me. Logan's schedule was relentless. Summer prep classes, martial arts, business internships. He was practically grooming himself to take over Callahan Global, despite the rumors that he wanted nothing to do with it. He passed me in the hallway like I was furniture. Which was fine. I used the time to quietly liquidate everything I could: designer clothes, luxury handbags, jewelry my mother once forced on me to look the part. I raised over $200,000. I wasn't wasting it. Instead, I wired it into a private brokerage account, logged into my trading dashboard, and began what I'd been preparing for since the moment I opened my eyes in this life again. The stock market. I had memories, data, trends that hadn't happened yet. And this time, I had the will to act. I started with tech, small caps, low volume. 2 weeks later, that $200,000 had become $4. $3 million. By month's end, I'd started the paperwork for my own LLC. Let Daisy chase fantasy through lace veils and diamond rings. I was building an empire. One afternoon, I sat in the living room going through quarterly reports when Logan walked in. He paused, eyes catching the Bloomberg terminal I'd rigged to the wall. "Your day trading?" he asked, cool and skeptical. I smiled, flipping a page. "I prefer strategic short-term investing." He narrowed his eyes. "Using my father's money." "My own," I said. "Sold the designer lies my mother dressed me in, didn't need them." He studied me. That same unreadable expression. Calculating, cold. Then came the question that caught me off guard. "What do you want?" I leaned back in the chair, met his gaze. "You mean, what do I want from you?" He didn't blink. "I want freedom. Respect, protection, and a clean exit." He crossed his arms. "That's it. That's everything," I said. "You hate your father, I do too. You want out. So do I. We help each other. In 1 year, we're both free." He was quiet for a long moment, then finally asked, "And in return?" "I teach you everything I know," I said simply. "Stocks, business, negotiation, influence. I can make you a CEO that doesn't have to beg for approval." Logan exhaled slowly. "You really think you can beat my father?" I smiled. "I don't think I know." He paced once, then twice, hands behind his back like he'd just stepped into a war room. Then, without warning, he turned to me and nodded once. "Fine, I'll work with you." I almost laughed, because for the first time, Logan Callahan wasn't looking at me like I was his problem. He was looking at me like I was his equal. And that, in this world full of men like Warren Callahan, was more powerful than love. 3 weeks into my quiet takeover of the market, my phone buzzed with a FaceTime request from Daisy. I nearly declined it. But curiosity, dangerous, addictive curiosity, got the better of me. I tapped accept. And there she was. A shell of the girl who once pirouetted through social scenes like a spoiled ballerina. Her perfect blonde curls were frizzy and damp. Dark circles pooled beneath her eyes. Her bottom lip was split, and there were bruises, ugly, blooming bruises, along her collarbone. "Madelyn," she hissed. "You knew, didn't you?" I tilted my head, expression blank. "Knew what?" "About him," she snapped. "About what a freak he is." She was talking about Warren. Of course she was. "You let me marry him. You let me walk into that hellhole," she spat. "I did let you do anything, Daisy," I said calmly. "You chose him, twice actually." "You," she sputtered, almost growling. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? Sitting in that mansion like some smug saint while I'm being locked in a basement like a goddamn animal." I glanced sideways. Logan was sitting on the couch across the room, casually scrolling through his phone. Without a word, I flipped the camera so she could see him. Logan looked up, his eyes colder than Arctic steel. "If you want to test me," he said, voice even, "I can oblige." Daisy let out a scream and slammed the call off. Silence returned like a breath of fresh air. Logan didn't say anything, just kept scrolling. But I could tell he'd heard enough. He knew what his father was, what he really was, and if there had been any doubt about which side Logan stood on, it vanished with that call. Later that evening, he handed me a flash drive. No words. Just a look. Inside were files. Corporate tax records, shell companies, falsified ledgers, proof of Warren Callahan's money laundering and offshore fraud. Logan had been compiling it for years. "He once told me he could bury anything," Logan said. "I want to see if that's still true." I smiled. "We'll bury him instead." 2 days later, Daisy was back on social media, posting like nothing had happened. Yacht photos, designer shoes, hashtags like Callahan Queen and Boss Bride. Her favorite caption, "Ladies, marriage is your second birth. Choose power, not passion." She was practically begging to be envied. So I left a simple comment under one of her posts. "Is that love gentle or the kind that bruises?" She deleted it in under a minute. Then she sent me a voice message that began with, "You smug bitch," and ended with, "I'll be CEO of Callahan Global in 6 months. You'll still be licking your wounds from some punk teenager." I listened to it with a glass of wine in hand. Logan, sitting beside me, raised an eyebrow. She really said punk teenager. I nodded, grinning, her exact words. He chuckled, actually chuckled, then leaned forward, grabbing a folder from the table. Inside were brand mock-ups, a sustainable fashion line we'd co-designed. Bold silhouettes, smart fabrics, integrated wellness tech. High-end, conscious, scalable. Our first soft launch was 3 days away. Orders were already flooding in. "We're going to destroy her without ever touching her," he said. "Better than therapy," I replied. 1 week later, Warren Callahan hosted a small charity gala, his idea of laundering reputation as well as money. Daisy walked in wearing a $3.5 million emerald necklace, hair curled to perfection, lips painted in arrogance. She gave me a mocking glance across the room. I just lifted my champagne glass in greeting. 10 minutes later, Warren tried to slip me a box under the table. I opened it and found a matching emerald bracelet. "Just a gift," he said, smiling, "for your patience." Before I could speak, Logan stepped in between us. "She doesn't accept gifts," he said coldly, "especially not from predators." Warren's eyes darkened. "You forget who made you, boy." "No," Logan said, "I remember too well." The tension sliced through the room like a blade. Guests went silent. I placed the bracelet back on the table. "I already have everything I need." Logan reached for my hand, laced his fingers through mine, and said loud enough for the room to hear, "And anything else I will provide." That night, as I sat in the backseat of Logan's Tesla on our way home, he asked, almost offhandedly, "What's your limit, Madelyn?" I turned to him. "My limit?" He nodded. "What crosses the line for you?" I stared out at the city lights before answering. "Betrayal. I can forgive almost anything, except betrayal." He didn't respond, but I saw the way his jaw tensed. And for the first time, I wondered what betrayal had carved into him. Not just bruises, but scars. The day Daisy was promoted to vice president of Callahan Global, she called me at midnight, drunk on champagne and arrogance. "Guess who made it to the front page of Forbes Women, sis?" She slurred through the phone. "Me, not you." She held the phone at an awkward angle, showcasing her $120,000 emerald bracelet, the same one Warren had tried to give me. Her eyes were wild, lips smeared with lipstick, mascara clinging to tears that hadn't fallen yet. "I have 5% equity," she bragged. "Warren even changed the company's legal registration to put me as a co-owner. Do you understand what that means? I win." I leaned back in my office chair, watching the numbers scroll across my trading dashboard. We just landed a contract with a wellness tech brand in Sweden, projected revenue. Over $10 million in Q1, but I let her gloat. She was still playing house with monsters. I was building an empire. Oh, and, she added with a sneer, I've been kind. Left some of my old jewelry in the third-floor suite. A little green necklace. Worth maybe $400,000. You should sell it, might help you pay rent. She winked, and for a second I saw her for what she really was. A woman speeding down a highway with no brakes, laughing at the world, convinced she was invincible. I flipped my camera to Logan, who sat on the couch next to me, reviewing merger documents. "Hey Logan," I said sweetly, "did you leave any emerald necklace lying around the house?" He didn't even look up. His voice dropped into a quiet frost. Where did she hear about that? That was all it took. Daisy's face went ghost white. The call disconnected a second later. In the following weeks, Daisy took her new role very seriously. Too seriously. She launched sweeping reforms at Callahan Global, cutting departments she didn't understand, firing project managers with decades of experience, and replacing them with Instagram influencers who called her Boss Babe. The company's operations fell apart. 3 major deals collapsed. 2 lawsuits followed. Warren had to personally call and beg executives to return. Internally, people called her the Wrecking Daisy. Externally, she was still strutting around in Chanel and calling herself the youngest power woman in the West. And then came her big pitch. She planned a night of indulgence to entertain a group of international investors. Where did she host it? At a private rooftop club in Vegas, complete with champagne towers, hired models, and of course, custom experiences. She called it networking, I called the police, and the press. By midnight, headlines read, Vice President of Callahan Global caught hosting alleged illegal party. Luxury scandal at rooftop Eden sex, power and champagne. Warren tried to do damage control, but it was too late. His name was plastered across tabloids alongside words like money laundering, tax fraud, and sex trafficking connections. Logan stared at the screen, emotionless, then handed me a folder marked, Final Strike. Inside was everything. Dates, names, bank transfers, years of evidence. He'd been collecting it since he was 14. I need your help getting it into the right hands, he said. I smiled. Already done. The IRS, FBI, SEC, and 3 whistleblower foundations. They'll race each other to file charges. 2 weeks later was Callahan Global's end-of-year charity gala. I arrived in a black floor-length gown, hair slicked back, wearing nothing but a single silver bracelet. Daisy, on the other hand, looked like a walking fantasy. Emerald dress, diamonds dripping from her ears, her signature smug grin in place. I hope you dressed up to apologize, she said. Because tonight, Warren is officially announcing me as CEO. And when I'm in charge, I'll bury you and your little side hustle under NDAs and lawsuits. I sipped my champagne. You really think this is the top, huh? She leaned closer. This is just the beginning, you'll see. Right then, piano music stopped. The room quieted. Warren walked on stage, clearing his throat dramatically. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight marks a transition. The Callahan legacy will now pass into new hands. The spotlight swung to Daisy. She took one triumphant step forward, but the ballroom doors slammed open. Federal agents poured in. Daisy Brooks, you're under arrest for financial fraud, illegal hosting of illicit events, and willful misrepresentation as corporate legal authority. You could have heard a diamond drop. Warren turned red. There must be a mistake. But his protest was cut short when he was cuffed too. Warren Callahan, you're under arrest for tax evasion, criminal conspiracy, and international finance. It took exactly 37 hours after the gala for the entire Callahan empire to collapse. Stock prices plummeted. Callahan Global filed for emergency bankruptcy protection. Federal agents raided their offices, and every bank account tied to Warren, Daisy, or any of their fake shell companies. Frozen. The most poetic part, Daisy wasn't just a puppet, she was the legal face of it all. Warren had made her the registered CEO in a last-ditch effort to look modern and progressive. She de-signed every document like it was a designer handbag, without reading a damn thing. Now, every fraud charge, every illegal transaction, every falsified record, all of it had her name on it. She went from Forbes under 30 to federal inmate 891,729 in less than 2 days. I didn't even need to lift a finger. She destroyed herself with vanity and ink. 3 weeks passed before I heard from her again. A letter. Smudged with tears, written in her messy cursive. Madelyn, I know I messed up. I was stupid. I should have listened. Please help me. I'll do anything, just get me out of here. The old me might have felt something. Guilt, pity, some flicker of sibling obligation. But the version of me who died with her on that hotel roof. She was gone. Still, I visited, for closure. They brought her out in an orange jumpsuit, wrists chained, eyes sunken. The bruises on her arms weren't from luxury facials, they were from learning that prison is very, very real. She sat across the glass and picked up the phone with trembling hands. "Thank God," she whispered. "I knew you'd come. I've been beaten 3 times this week. They don't care that I was a VP or that I used to wear Dior. They just see me as fresh meat." I didn't flinch, she leaned forward. "Please, Madelyn, talk to Logan. Use your money, call a lawyer, I'll pay you back. I'll sign over everything." Everything? There was nothing left to give. "You remember that day," I said slowly, "when I warned you about Warren, told you he wasn't safe, when you mocked me for being jealous." She shut her eyes tight. "I begged you not to sign those documents," I continued. "You called me bitter. And when I tried to leave the first time, you told Warren I was planning it. He locked me in that mansion for 6 months. Daisy started to cry. I was scared. He said he'd take everything if I didn't." "You were never scared," I cut in. "You were greedy." She slammed the glass. "You knew, you remembered everything and you let me fall. You're just as twisted as him." I leaned in. "Here's the difference, Daisy. I learned. You didn't. That's why you're in there and I'm out here." Her eyes were wild now, bloodshot. "I'll kill you when I get out." A guard banged the door open before I could even respond. "That's enough." They dragged her away, screaming. And just like that, I let go of the last string that had ever bound me to her. 3 years later, my company, Nova Vale Studios, went public. The IPO broke records. We launched a fashion tech division, signed deals with international retailers, and partnered with major studios to produce shows about women reclaiming their power. I became the youngest female billionaire in California. Logan. He built Ember Robotics from scratch, clean, smart, fully independent from the Callahan name. The trauma of his past became his mission. He hired other survivors, invested in mental health, and built something that finally made him proud. We didn't need each other to succeed, but together, we were unstoppable. One evening, after a late investor meeting, I returned home to find Logan waiting on the balcony. The sun was setting behind him, Lowe's angels glowing gold beneath our feet. He handed me a folder. "What's this?" I asked. "Final update," he said. "Callahan Global's liquidation is done. Daisy's sentence was finalized this morning. 15 years, no parole." I nodded slowly, staring out over the skyline. He added, "She sent another letter." I didn't ask what it said. "I didn't open it," he said. "You don't have to either." I reached for his hand. He didn't flinch. Instead, he held it, firmly. There was no ring, no wedding announcement, just 2 people who had survived hell together, and now stood at the edge of something entirely new. 3 months after Daisy's sentencing, I visited the house where it all began. The Callahan estate was silent, abandoned. The fountains were dry, the gardens overgrown. The front gates, once guarded by security 24/7, hung open like a forgotten secret. I didn't come back to mourn it. I came back to claim closure. With Logan beside me, I stepped through the grand entryway. Dust floated through sunbeams. Every step echoed in the emptiness. Memories pressed against me like old ghosts. The whisper of my mother's judgment, the glint of Warren's cold smile, Daisy's laughter bouncing off marble walls. I stood still. Then I said it aloud. "I forgive myself. Not them, me. For staying too long. For believing I needed their approval. For thinking I had to earn love by bleeding for it. Logan didn't say anything. He didn't have to. He just stood there, letting me breathe. That's what real healing looks like. Not fireworks, not a dramatic speech, just quiet and choice. I sold the estate 2 weeks later. The money went straight into a scholarship fund for girls aging out of foster care, those like me, reborn into second chances. We called it the Phoenix Grant. Every graduate from the program got not only a stipend and housing, but also mentorship from my executive team. No more begging for scraps. They'd walk into rooms already knowing they belonged there. I visited the program every month, not as a savior, but as a reminder you can be broken, discarded, betrayed, and still rise. Still choose yourself. Still win. Logan and I never married. People always asked us why. We never needed a reason. We'd been bound by survival, built an empire on ashes, and held each other up when the world tried to crush us. That was more sacred than rings or paperwork. Some nights, he'd read beside me in bed, glasses slipping down his nose, a gentle firelight between us. Other nights, we'd sit on the rooftop, sharing a bottle of wine, silently watching the city we once thought would destroy us. And sometimes, when the world grew quiet enough, I could hear her voice again, my past self. The girl who died in that hotel. The girl who begged for love from people who only wanted control. I'd close my eyes and whisper, "You made it." And for the first time in 2 lives, I truly believed it. It's funny how people only believe in you once the world applauds. These days, people introduce me like I'm a myth. The woman who took down a billionaire. The survivor who turned silence into an empire. The girl who lost everything, then rebuilt it brick by brick. But I don't live for headlines. I live for the mornings I wake up and feel safe in my own skin. For the emails from Phoenix Grant alumni saying, "I signed my first lease today. I never thought I'd get here." For the nights Logan and I spend curled on the couch, laughing over nothing, surrounded by peace we earned with blood and grit. For the freedom, because in the end that's what I fought for. Not revenge, not recognition, just the freedom to exist without fear, to speak without shaking, to walk into any room and know I don't owe anyone my silence ever again. Daisy's name faded from headlines within months. Warren got 22 years, no chance of parole. The Callahan brand was liquidated, their fortune gone. People still whisper their names in boardrooms like a warning. But me, I didn't just survive the fire, I became the match. Last fall, I stood on the TEDx stage in New York, not as a victim, not as a former anything, but as Madelyn Brooks, founder, builder, woman. I told the audience, don't let anyone tell you survival is the peak. We weren't born to just escape. We were born to rise. Thunderous applause, but it was the silent tear of one girl in the front row that stayed with me. She mouthed, "Thank you." And I knew this was the legacy I chose. I don't walk with rage anymore. I walk with purpose. I don't dream about revenge. I dream about impact. Because the real win, it's not making them pay. It's realizing